Hey everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy Wednesday to each of you. Happy hump day. Whoop, whoop. Yes, we're over the hump of the week. Yes, this is a doozy. Sometimes I say that a lot, but it's a little bit of a doozy. And I will be honest with you, I really struggled with how I was going to develop this content because you're not physically right in front of me where I can see deer in headlights, or if you have a question, you can pop your hand up. Now, if you're watching this on the premiere, you can definitely ask as we go. I will be on here watching with you, so don't hesitate. But I will do the Facebook Live, and I'll talk about all that at the end like I normally do. But this was, if I did a class, it's a completely different thing in person, because I really love the questions and I love being able to see if we're connecting or not, because it kind of guides me. I don't have that. I'm looking at a rectangle square. So I've recorded this like, I don't even know how many times. And I kept changing how I was going to do it. So we're talking about batting, a super awesome conversation, but man, is there so much information. And this particular video, I just want to kind of touch on things. So it's not going to be real in depth, but I want to try and give you some food for thought and a little bit of guidance. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. And in the future, I have a blog I'm working on. I have a cheat sheet for you that I'm working on. It won't be ready by today, so you're not going to see it at the time this video airs. But when I get it done, I'll definitely put it in the links below, both those things, so that you have a piece of paper, because I think in this situation, it'd be a lot more beneficial. But in the meantime, if you have questions, let me know. We're going to go through this in a format that I hope will help. And I'll do a Facebook Live, which I'll talk about later, and you can ask me more questions if you have them. But yeah, batting, I love batting. Love me some batting. And for those of you who are super new, we've got the top piece, which you piece together. You have the backing, and in the middle of what we call the quilt sandwich, we're not talking about lunch, but it is a very good way of describing how this works. The top, the backing, and the middle is the meat. Top and bottom are bread, middle is the meat. That's your batting, okay? And now sometimes you'll hear people call it wadding. Depending on what country you come from, they may call it wadding. But we're talking about batting, and I love this subject. If you and I got to eat lunch together or dinner, or we were just coming over and I had you here, we could talk all day long, because there's so many products and so many really cool things with batting. But we're just going to try and run through this really quick. Let me know. Again, I'm watching this with you at the time that this originally airs. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. All right. Batting. I don't know about y'all, but when I very first started quilting, looking at all of the products, different brands, all of that, it was so overwhelming. So the way I originally started working with batting is I went with straight 100% cotton. My fabric was 100% cotton. My thread, and still today, as of right now, I do want to experiment with some polyester, but as of right now, I still use 100% cotton thread. So I thought, okay, I'll just do 100% cotton batting. That's where I started. And it's not a bad place to start. But there's so many things out there. And I have my go-tos right now, but because I'm way into all the different varieties, you're going to come along with me when I start to experiment. And I'm going to show you, like I do with the different ways to do basting, I'm going to show you what I find with the different specialty battings, okay? But we can talk through them, all right? So when you're starting to select, I mean, if you're like me and you just want to go with 100%, there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's what your go-to is for the rest of your life, perfect. Because that, again, is exactly where I started. But if you're intrigued by all of the variations, there's some things that you can start to ask yourself. And some of those questions, and mind you, I do have notes because I want to be able to keep on track. So some of the questions are, what kind of project are you making? Are you doing a quilt, a wall hanging, a table runner, a tree skirt? Are you making it, you know, a crib quilt? What kind of project are you making? All right. Another question that you may ask is, how is that quilt going to be used and who is it for? And within that questions, you can also say, how is it going to be cared for? So all of that goes into one big question. Maybe you might ask, how are you going to quilt it? Maybe you need to know, understand the different fabrics that you're using. Oh, here's a big one. How do you want it to look when you're done? And another big one is, do you have a preference in natural fiber versus synthetic? Okay, because that is a big question. And there's a lot more questions, but I'm trying to keep this simple. So I'm not going to sit here and answer all those questions here all at once and go through like that. What I decided to do was just start with some battings and talk about them a little bit. It's just an overbrief. This is not in depth. It's an overbrief. But during that time period, I'm hoping that you'll see that I'm answering some of those questions that you may ask yourself, okay? All right, so the way I wanted to start this is the two most popular that most people hear about. We have 100% cotton and we have 80-20. 80-20 means 80% cotton, 20% polyester, okay? Those are, I mean, when you start talking about batting, and even, you know, especially with those who don't know how much there really is, or they don't have a lot of experience, those are the two big ones in the batting world, okay? So like I told you before, I actually started with 100% cotton. That's where I started. And if you actually prefer to have natural and you are thinking to have everything in 100% cotton, it is a wonderful batting. Absolutely wonderful. Cotton itself is breathable. It's a natural fiber. So it breathes really well. It'll help keep you warm. There is some weight to it. And there is a little bit of, we call it wicking, where it pulls moisture, you know, because we, as humans, we sweat, and it helps, and this is a nurse in me, guys, but it helps our bodies. One of the things it does, there's a lot of things it does, but one of the things it does is it helps keep our body temperature regulated throughout the day. So even though you're not like profusely sweating and you got drips, you're always letting off moisture through your skin. And cotton, just a tidbit, helps pull that away. It's not very efficient at doing it, but it does. So it is and it's natural. Very, very natural. So it does have some really good elements. Breathable, takes away a little bit of the moisture. But some of the other things, so if you know, if you look at quilts, whether they're antique or new or whatever, and they've got that puckering, how do I explain puckering? Puckering is like it has like bubbles around the quilting, okay? That's due to the shrinkage because it's a natural fiber that does shrink. So there is shrinkage. It doesn't matter what company you use, you're going to have shrinkage. Now, depending on the company will determine how they made the batting, will determine how much shrinkage it will have. So different battings have different shrinkages. Cotton, just like in your quilts, if you buy 100% quilting fabric, you know that it has memory. I have talked about that in my own videos. If you watch anybody else, you have memory in 100% cotton. It has a memory. So what that means is if you're going to store the quilt and you're going to fold it up, put it away, there will be a crease that is hard to get rid of because it's got a memory to it. So shrinkage happens, you'll get the puckering, which some of us absolutely love. I'm one of them. And it has that memory. And the other thing that you have to consider is it is cotton, so it will have lint. Now, in my store, I carry Hobbs and Quilter's Dream, and those are the two that I've only used, period. I've not used other brands, so I can't tell you a whole bunch of them. But I will tell you, as far as the lint goes, even with 100% cotton, there's a difference. When I use it on my long arm, or I use it on my domestic when I'm quilting, I can see a difference in the lint. But it's cotton. It's natural. Cotton has lint. Okay? Now there's things that they do to try to eliminate it, but it does have lint. As far as I'm only going to talk about the two companies because that's what I use. But as far as Hobbs goes, it comes in two colors. 100% cotton comes in bleached, and it comes in a natural is what they call it, but it's like a cream color. And you can quilt it up to 4 inches apart. Now that's always important. It doesn't matter what company you're looking at, but if you're going to think about how you're quilting it, let's say you want to do straight line quilting. Maybe you want your straight lines to be 6 inches. If you have Hobbs, it's recommended that you don't go above 4 inches. Now what does that mean? That means if I do one straight line, I shouldn't go more than 4 inches to get the next straight line. Why? Because I talk about this a lot too, and it's so true. Have you ever bought a comforter from a store? You put it on your bed, you gotta wash it, you put it in the washing machine, you put it in the dryer, you pull it out, you do this several times, and at one point you'll have like a really thin area, and then you'll have this really thick area of just a bulk of batting, the middle in there, just clumped in, and another area that doesn't have any. Quilting your quilt by the recommended distance, so not going over that 4 inches with Hobbs, will help eliminate that and allow the batting to last longer, to be more consistent in your quilt as it has its life, okay? With Quilter's Dream, it also comes in natural, which is that cream color, and it also comes in bleached, which is like that white. And it comes where they're recommending 8 inches apart. So if you wanted to do 6 inches apart in straight line quilting, you could do that with Quilter's Dream and be safe, because they're saying you can do up to 8 inches or less in your quilting. The other really cool thing about Quilter's Dream is that it comes in 4 different lofts. Now, lofts are thicknesses. So they have 4 lofts. The first one, and I keep looking up because I'm trying to remember. The first one is Request, which is very thin. The next one is Select, which is a medium loft. Then you have Deluxe, which is considered by Quilter's Dream as high loft, so it's thick. And then they even have one that's Supreme. And that's, I call it the super duper, but they're like super high, you know. It's a lot. So they offer 4 different lofts, and each one of them can be quilted 8 inches apart. It doesn't matter if you're using these 2 brands or not. If you use a different brand, the important thing is the packaging will tell you what that recommended distance is. So when you're thinking about quilting it, you got to think about that distance. And most of Hobbs do 4 inches. Most of Quilter's Dream does 8. Other than that, I can't tell you what the other companies do. I'm not familiar. I've never used them. I haven't read their packaging. But if you use another brand, just read the label. It's huge. It'll tell you about shrinkage. It'll tell you about your stitching. All right. Now, why would we have different colors? So I talked about the bleached versus the unbleached. So that's where the question is about the fabric you're using. If you have a lot of white and a lot of fabrics that are pastel colors, very light in color, they recommend using a bleached or a white batting because it'll help those colors keep their vibrancies. And I'll be honest, I have used both, and that is something I have done, but I don't worry about it too much, because if you use a cream on a light quilt, you may get some tinting on it. You know, it may dull the colors a little bit, and that's up to your own preference, because for me it doesn't bother me so much. It just truly doesn't. It's not something that I'm focused on. So if only thing I can get my hands on is cream or natural color, I'm good with it. But if I do have a lot of light colors, I will try to find a white or a bleached batting to go with that. All right. Now, you know, the biggest thing about that 100% cotton is it's really a preference. If you're not, and I will tell you they're thinner. When you do your quilting, they're a lot thinner. So now Quilter's Dream has the 4 different lofts. So if you're going to think about how you're quilting it, if you are a hand quilter, and I've only done one hand quilting project, and I did use 100% cotton. It works great for that because it does tend to be thinner, so you don't have as much aches and dull and pain in your hand and work that's going through your wrist and your fingers and you know, getting that needle through. So a thinner loft is actually good for that. It really truly is. But with Quilter's Dream, because they offer the 4, one of the things they say is their thinnest, being Request, is really good for hand quilting. You can machine quilt with it, but they recommend it's for those long armors that are floating their quilt top. If you're floating it, they say it can work, but it's really good for hand quilting. Because the thinner the better, because of, you know, all the muscle work, the tendons, the wrist efforts to help eliminate some of the aches and pains that we might get from it. So we talked about those colors, so that can answer another question. Now the second biggest popular one is your 80-20. So you have 80% cotton, 20% polyester. It still shrinks, so you're still going to get some puckering. It does have some memory because remember, there's 80% cotton, which has memory. So there is some memory in there. And, but I will say it's not as linty, because it does have that 20%, and it's a little bit more durable. So when you're thinking about that, if you're making quilts that are going to be washed a lot, table runners, placemats, you might be making a quilt for a small child that you know is going to drag it across the floor outside, you know. Maybe you're making it for a new baby, and you know babies spit up a lot. I mean, let's just be honest. Those types of quilts are going to be washed a lot. Maybe you're making your own utility quilt that you're going to put on your couch and you're going to utilize a lot. And you just know you're going to wash it a lot. That 80-20 adds some stability to it, or some durability, that it can be it can handle that extra washing a lot better. Okay. So that might be a reason that you might want to look at if the polyester doesn't bother you, because it's not 100% natural. It does have the synthetic 20% in there. So if that doesn't bother you, that is actually a really good choice. The puckering is there because there still is shrinkage, but what I have experienced is it still puckers. It's just not quite as much. Okay. But it can handle the washings. That's really, really important. Now with Hobbs, they offer bleached, so the extra white, natural, cream colored, and black in 80-20. Why would we want to worry about black? Well, I've never done it. But if you have quilts that have dark purples, dark navy, black, a lot of it, using a black batting does two things. Number one, apparently allows the colors to stay more vibrant because the white doesn't take away from that color. But the other thing, if you are quilting your own quilts, if you ever notice when you handle some batting, you might have some lint on top of your quilt top when you're done. And you got to take your lint brush and you got to clean it off. Well, if you've got a dark colored quilt and has some black in it, that black lint doesn't show up as much. So you may not have to clean it the same way as if you did with a light colored with your dark fabric. So it's recommended that if you're working with some really dark fabric that you use a black color. Now, Quilter's Dream offers just an 80-20. They offer white and natural, or the cream color. They don't offer the black in an 80-20. And again, Hobbs 4 inches apart with 80-20. Quilter's Dream 8 inches apart. So you don't have so much to worry about. So there are some advantages to both. There really is. I mean, when you're looking at what you're doing, all these questions that you should ask, Hobbs and Quilter's Dream both are phenomenal companies. And I'm not sponsored by any stretch. I sell them in the shop, but I'm not sponsored. But they're both really, really good companies. And I'm told Warm and Natural is good too. I've just never used it, so I can't tell you per se. The other thing about 80-20 is that it is a little cheaper. So if you're making charity quilts, you don't know how the people are going to wash it. You don't know how they're going to care for it. And you want to try and save yourself a little bit of money. 80-20 tends to be a little bit cheaper than your 100% cotton. Okay. So that's another advantage to it. So I'm going to dip now into a little bit of specialties, but just for a minute. If you are a person that is really into being 100% natural fibers, you have some options. So we have wool, we have cotton wool blends, we have We have silk, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then Quilter's Dream actually offers a natural fiber blend. So both Hobbs and Quilter's Dream offer 100% wool. Why would you think about using 100% wool? Well, I will tell you, remember I talked about pulling the moisture out? Wool actually does a better job than cotton at pulling away the moisture. And it's a little lighter in weight than cotton, and it's actually warmer. But it's not so warm like you think about wool and people get scared. Well, I live in Texas or I live in, different places. Well, you can wear wool socks, and because it's pulling away the moisture, it actually isn't too hot for you to wear it when you're running, for instance. It's a very wonderful fiber that the warmth is there, but you got to remember it's pulling away that extra moisture, so it's not trapping things the same as cotton. And in some ways, cotton can actually be hotter, not comfortable hot, bad hot, than wool. And it's lighter weight. The other thing is that wool doesn't have memory. So if you do a quilt that is made of 100% wool, you can fold it up and the creases won't stay. It doesn't memorize them. It's actually very good for hand quilting. So if you're looking at hand quilting, that's another option for you. And apparently the linolene, the oil inside, that's what people are allergic to. So it's not recommended if you have somebody who's allergic to wool to use it. The needle, when it goes through, helps make it easier to quilt, and it keeps your needle a little bit sharper. There's less resistance when you're doing it. So it's a very good idea for hand quilting. It still does shrink a little. It is breathable, like I talked about. And it can be a really good idea. Now, Hobbs offers a cotton wool blend. And I don't know what the actual blend is. I can't remember if it's 80-20. But they do offer a cotton wool blend, so you can get both of both worlds with that. Another idea behind some natural fibers is your silk. I did talk about some silk, and Hobbs does offer a silk. Now, there are some advantages to this. There are some disadvantages. So if you're wanting 100% natural fiber, their silk product is not 100%. It's 90% silk and 10% high quality polyester. So there is that 10% in there. But it has a drape like no other, apparently. And, for some of us who really enjoy doing some really small quilting, so stippling, for instance, but really micro quilting, a lot of times when you do that with your other battings, it can make it feel a little stiff. Silk is able to take in no matter what kind of thread you use. Okay? It can handle it. So if you micro staple or micro quilt to death and you use a silk batting, it still will be soft and drape really well. Now, I've never tried it. I'm going to. That's in a future video. But that is my understanding behind silk. And I'm very intrigued with it because I think that'd be really, really cool. Quilter's Dream offers something that they just switched the name in the last 30 days. So it's now called, it used to be Dream Orient. Now it's called Dream Bamboo. And I actually have a package because I can't ever remember. I haven't used it yet, but it's a blend, but it's got bamboo, silk, cotton, And I don't know what a Tencel blend is. I'm going to have to call them and get a little bit more of a education behind that, but it's natural. Environmentally friendly fibers, okay? So you can quilt it up to 8 inches apart also. Now the silk, woo, I don't remember what they say. Let me see, I actually might have it here. Nope, it's 4 inches for the silk with Hobbs, and the Dream Bamboo is 8 inches with Quilter's Dream. And they can also be machine washed and dried. Okay, so there is that, and it also offers a wonderful drape, that natural fiber blend that they have with Quilter's Dream with the Dream Bamboo. Nice, beautiful drape. And it's also good for both hand quilting and machine quilting. They only offer it in their select loft, which is their medium. So there's only one loft that's offered. Now, real quick, there's just a couple more items that I want to talk about. As far as your t-shirt quilts, if you have made t-shirt quilts in the past, you'll know this. If you haven't, you'll experience it. T-shirt quilts tend to be heavier. There's a lot of weight that comes with it. If you want the puckering, if that's a desired idea, then your 80/20s and your 100% cotton are super fine to use with that, because it will do that puckering and it'll give you that look. But there are some people that don't want that. And it adds weight. The 80/20 and the cotton will add weight. Now I'm pulling this one out because I'm just so amazed how they have developed this. Hobbs came out with something they called thermo. How far apart can you quilt it? I want to say it's 8 inches. It might be 10, so don't quote me. It's 8 to 10 inches. I think it's 8. But it is so, it's 100% polyester, their thermo is. It is 100% polyester, so it will not pucker. It will not shrink. It has zero memory because it's not natural, but it's really lightweight. And knowing that you can quilt at 8 inches apart means if you're doing a memory quilt or a t-shirt quilt with those t-shirts and you want to quilt bigger, this just may be the answer. I mean, I just wish y'all could see this. It's so lightweight and it's so super thin. So it doesn't add weight to it, and you can quilt bigger. Quilter's Dream offers 100% polyester, and they have other ones too. Hobbs does, that are a little thicker. I mean, I've got, so here's one, and there's the thermo. I mean, you can see that, right? And then we've got another one here. So they do offer other various things with 100% cotton, polyester, and they are really lightweight. I've never quilted a quilt with 100% polyester, but I'm a little bit intrigued to see how it works, okay? Now with Quilter's Dream, they offer it in 3 lofts, and it can be quilted up to 12 inches apart. You have a 12-inch block. You only have to do quilting around the 12 inches apart. That's all you got to quilt it. Like I said, I've never done it. I'm going to. I have some samples. I'm going to have a little fun with it. So I'll let you know how that works, but I wanted to put that little food for thought. I was thinking in that respect, if you're not looking at a natural fiber and you're okay with polyester, another place to put it is maybe some placemats, because you know how you make a placemat and it's quilted and it starts to pucker. Your glasses may not sit, they may tilt or fall over because of the quilting. that may be a really good option for placemats and your table runner, to be able to have a flat surface, doesn't shrink, no puckering. That may be a really good advantage to have that. I haven't tried it, so get ready, because that's a future video. The last thing I wanted to talk about is what Quilter's Dream calls Dream Angel. And yeah, my name's Angel, so I have to go there. I was so super excited about this. It's not natural. It is synthetic. It's actually, and I don't know how much of one fiber, synthetic fiber to the next. I don't know the ratio, but in it is something, and I don't know a lot about it, so I'm going to be doing some research, but it's called monocrylic, and the other one is rayon. But they're naturally flame retardant. Now here's the really cool thing. I'm going to open this while I'm sitting with you guys here. They actually have met a lot of international, what do you call that? Strict regulations when you want to say that it's flame retardant. This does not have any chemicals added. It's just those fibers. I just have to open this, guys. I'm going to quilt with it because I'm very intrigued by it. It also passes the California, they're very strict, but their California, what is it called? 604 test for open flame resistance. And what they did, I just have to tell the story. What they did is they put a piece of cotton, a layer of cotton, 100% cotton, on the top of this batting. The batting was in the middle, and they put a piece of 100% cotton on the bottom, and they lit up the cotton on the top. Now, of course, it's burning, right? The cotton underneath it had no damage. So my whole thought was, if you are making a quilt for a baby and you want to put it in a crib, if the bottom layer, if that bottom layer of cotton was not damaged, then I know the person underneath it wouldn't be either. Unless, of course, their head's sticking out. But I mean, as far as their body content, it did not have any damage to that bottom layer. Just the top layer was under the flame. I think that is so fascinating. I'm actually willing to do my own test. I'm just going to have to weigh something. But it's not a natural fiber. It's naturally retardant, but it's not a natural fiber. But I guess it's very breathable, which I'll be testing. I'm going to make a quilt with this. But what I wanted you to see is how it looks like cotton batting. And it feels, to me it feels more like 80-20. But it's similar, very similar even to cotton. It moves like it. It feels like it. It looks like it. I'm intrigued. I don't know how it quilts. I'm told it quilts wonderfully, but I've never done it. But I'm just thinking of the safety idea. I'm very intrigued. And because it's not natural, I would assume that there's not any puckering. I don't know. This is an experiment, but I wanted to let you know that that was available to you. I actually am carrying this in my shop. I only have it one size. What size am I carrying? Throw size, which is 60 by 60. But this, I mean, this is amazing. It feels amazing. It looks amazing. I'm really excited to try this, especially when I'm making a quilt for a baby. It's flame retardant, or a child. Doesn't have to be a baby. It can be a child. Well, heck, even for myself. Maybe I make one that's bigger for myself. If I fall, in bed and I have one to put extra warmth on me, this just may be the way to go. Yeah, and it feels As far as weight goes, it's a little tiny bit heavier than what I think 100% cotton feels. But for some people that they like a heavier feeling. Now I'll let you know more when I experiment with it. But I wanted to make that aware to you because it's available. And I think that is awesome. So man, yeah, I've probably talked too much already. And that's just kind of the gist. I'm going to break this down into more details later. And we'll talk more about batting when the blog's up and ready, when the cheat sheet's there. Definitely let y'all know, because y'all know how much I'm partial to you. And anything we can do to help spread a little knowledge in your quilting world and a little inspiration, because like I said, I'm in these two, the bamboo, the Dream Bamboo mix, and the silk that Hobbs offers, and the Dream Angel, and 100% polyester. I've never done that either. So those I'm definitely excited to experiment with and see how that works. But that's it for today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them down below. I am going to do a Facebook Live today because I will be there for any questions that you may have. Quilting and answer session. I'll be there. We can talk about these things because there's so much information, guys. I mean, there's just a lot of information and just some food for thought. And you know what I want to end with, the bottom line is, when you find what you love, you will know it. And you'll see yourself buying the same thing over and over. Perfect. It really boils down to that idea, is what you find works for you with what you want and how you want it. Okay? So if you decide, I really do hope that you will stretch yourself a little and try some of these other items. And then when you do that, what I recommend is that you take note of it. So you can compare and contrast between different quilts, what they look like, how they feel, how the quilting looks, because the quilting will change. Take those notes, and maybe you have a preference, but you might stretch yourself for a certain type of quilt. So that's it for today. Come join at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time today on my Facebook channel. Link for that is down below. If you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments. You can email me. Email is listed below. I do carry a couple of things with Hobbs, and I have a lot of different items with Quilter's Dream. So if you're looking for some product, it's there for you. And I will tell you, if you are a Be Inspired subscriber, you have your 20% discount for the National Quilting Month. And it expires tonight at 11:59 p.m. here on May 31st at 11:59 my time, 2021. So if you have that, you can utilize that code to get a discount on some batting that you may want to try. In the future, we will look forward to more, but more specific. I'm going to dig more specifically. So that's it for batting, and my gosh, that was a lot. I hope I was clear and understandable, and I gave you some food for thought. But until next time, may y'all continue to be inspired, productive, and ever so joyful. Believe in your quilting, because we believe in you. And until then, never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. I'll talk to y'all soon. Happy quilting and happy hump day. Whoop, whoop. See y'all later.